is calling you for breakfast. You only have 10 minutes. I have to leave. Will you go and have your quiet time in 10 minutes and tell your wife that, sorry, I don't have time today for breakfast, only time for quiet time? Or will you say that quiet time I can take tomorrow, big breakfast? What most people will do? Invariably, most people will take their breakfast because God is available there, He is sitting there anyway. You can go to Him anytime, right? Breakfast will get spoiled for tomorrow. All that argument is because our physical needs get priority over our spiritual needs. But not for everybody. For this more spiritual people, they will always let the breakfast go. They will have the quiet time. Yeah, they will say that I can have breakfast tomorrow morning, no problem. I won't die if I don't eat it. But how many will make that choice? Very few. Very, very few will make that choice. Why? Because the material things take precedence over the spiritual things. This is a fact. This is a fact. The feelings of the body dominates the feelings of the spirit. However, it should never be so. We all know that. Man seeks the gratification which is to be found in material objects rather than the blessedness which is to be found in spiritual things. That's the way. We all acknowledge and say that there is blessedness in seeking spiritual things, but man wants the satisfaction by seeking the material things over the blessedness that we get by seeking the spiritual things. Yeah. Very few people will choose spiritual over material. Very few people. We are all very spiritual people, I admit, but we very seldom will do that. So this is wrong. This seeking of the satisfaction in the material over the spiritual is the sin or the essence of sin. That is what the sensual theories say that. Seeking of the material satisfaction above the spiritual is what is sin. This doctrine prevailed in the church in all ages. Manichaeism, Romanism, they all taught this theory. That's why they all have the nuns and the priests and all these, what they call the monasteries and all that. They leave the comforts of the physical and go for the comforts of the spiritual. Go away. Hinduism teaches the same thing. They leave the comforts of the family life, grahasthashram, and they go to vanaprastham, they go to the next one, because they think that is much better. Manichaeism teaches matter is evil and therefore seeking pleasure in matter is sinful. Romanism teaches that the man as originally created was so constituted that the soul was subjected to the body, his higher being subject to the lower being. There is a design flaw in the original constitution of man which was corrected by the supernatural grace in righteousness. They say that man was created, there was a flaw in the creation, so what happened? The fruit, good for the eyes and good for the stomach, that take precedence upon the obedience and the blessings that come. But God has corrected that in the new creation. The new creation, the spiritual takes. Man has lost his supernatural righteousness and made man a sensuous being by sin. In this sensuous lies the original sin or the habitual sin. And this original sin is the cause of actual transgressions. Yeah, well, there is some truth in it. There is some truth. Some say sin is a necessary corollary of creation. Others say sin appeals to the liberty of will. Man as a free agent has the power either to resist or to submit to the enticement of the flesh. If he submits, it is his own fault. There is no necessity or coercion. But since this submission is universal, it cannot be individual choice. It must be part of the design. So God created in man a sensuous part which has the power to dominate the spiritual. They said all over the world, there are people all over the world, what are they making? They are all making the choice of the flesh over the spirit. Since it's a universal fact, it cannot be an individual mistake, it has to be a mistake in the design of God. So God designed man in such a way that the physical takes predominance over the spiritual. So God is guilty of that one. But whatever that one, salvation is when we reverse it. For that one we needed to endure pain and sacrifices. Yes, that's where the whole work of fasting and prayer and climbing the hills and all these things is to reverse that formula. Roman Catholicism and many religions do that. Oh boy, the amount of penance that is being done. When we were in Trichur, Kerala, I remember a man, my neighbor, he will get up early in the morning, 6 o'clock, go to what they call it, the Kurishivalli, they call it, what is it, what the English name? Whether it's a, Kurishivalli, that by this, grotto. He will go, that's right, that's the word I mean. He will go to the grotto, that is right by the national highway, NH47. Now they have removed it because now it came in the middle of the and he will kneel down before that right in the road. In the big rains, pouring out rains, he will stand there for almost an hour just praying and to get liberation from. He's a businessman, for the rest of the day he is going to satisfy his covetousness and all the other things, but then the next day morning he will confess all that. But the amount of pain he has endured standing there, and the people are looking at him, and he is there, he is very sincere. Very sincere man. And he was an asthmatic patient also. He will there and gasp for air before God and confessing his sin and all those things. So there are people who do that sort of thing. Yeah. But most of the average people, what they will do, they will keep on doing sin, and then after sin they will say, wipe their hands with them. Okay, God, this is the last one until the next one. That's what they say. This is the last one, the next one. I tell people, I can guarantee one thing, you will not die until the last sickness. You will not die until the last sickness. And that's true. Nobody is going to die until the last sickness. So it gives them comfort. They think that the last sickness won't come. But it could come any time. It could be right there, a heart attack, that may be your last sickness, and you died. So, people find it to get some form of comfort in things that really do not give them comfort. That's what this whole thing. Now, this theory is not biblical. Sin is not necessarily a state or an act of a sensuous nature. The worst sinful creatures have no physical part. Holy Spirit. Who? Satan. See? Satan doesn't have a body. So if sin is sensual, then Satan cannot commit sin because he has no body. So the worst sinner is not a sensual being, he has no body. So that means the sin is not sensuality necessarily. Sensuality is sin, but sin is not sensuality. So this theory doesn't hold water. Sin which are most offensive to man's conscience and which degrade him most are not physical. For example, pride, malice, envy, ambition, unbelief. Aren't they greater sin than some of the activities we do by maybe stealing or even adultery or anything? The mental sins which do not necessarily involve the activity of the body, they are more grievous and dangerous than the sin that is by the activity of the body. So the theory does not hold water. No, it's not a correct theory. The theory lower the gravity of guilt and the sense of sin. All moral evil become mere weakness because body is not involved in it. No, moral weaknesses and moral sins are more grievous than physical sins. So, the theory is not correct. In this theory, if this theory is right, then asceticism is right. And monks must be the holiest people. All experience and biblical data prove the reverse. Spiritual pride is the worst form of sin. The Pharisees during the time of Christ were men who punished their body by fasting. And yet the Lord saw them men of evil pride. Publicans and harlots, the Lord said, would enter the kingdom of God before you self-righteous people. Because God saw in them pride, spiritual pride. And spiritual pride is more dangerous than the other kinds of sin, When the Lord gave the story, the parable of the Pharisee and the sinner standing and praying, God was not saying that the sinner is better than the Pharisee. No. The sinner was no better than the Pharisee. He may have committed murder, he may have committed adultery, may have committed robbery. But what was the Lord saying? The spiritual pride of that Pharisee is a worse form of sin than the sins this man has committed. The spiritual pride. When he said, I am better than this man. I fast, I tithe, I this and I that. And God said, this sinner went home justified before God. While that Pharisee, did not find any forgiveness for his sins. So physical sins are not necessarily the worst sin. We have a tendency to brand physical sins the worst sins. I am not saying physical sins are not bad. They are bad. Definitely they are bad. But don't commit the mistake that only those who are committing physical sins are bad people and others are all clean, godly men. No, spiritual pride, God cannot stand spiritual pride as much as the physical sins. They are the worst form of it. If this theory is right, then the old is good. Because in old age, all sensual needs are at the lowest. 95-year-old man, almost crippled on the bed, he is a saint. Because none of his physical powers, they are all gone. He cannot see, so that the lust of the eye is gone. He cannot hear, so the lust of the ear is gone. His sexual faculties are all completely nil, so he is totally free from that one. And even his mind is not working, his memory faded, so he does not have envy, jealousy, nothing. So here, lo and behold, the saint. That's not the saint. The saint is not on 6 feet. Saint is usually on 2 feet. Yes. So real sainthood, comes when we are in our physical body, we are able to do all kinds of sinful, but yet we have chosen not to sin. We have deliberately resisted those. We have, our flesh is crucified with Christ. We reckon that it is crucified. We yield the members of our body for righteousness. It is not a case where, you cannot do anything, Yeah, sometimes we are saints only because we cannot do certain sins. No, that's not one. So old age is not necessarily the spiritual age. Carnal or sinful have no relation to age. The sinful nature has nothing to do with one's age. The young may have more boldness to sin, but not necessarily young age is more sinful than the other age stages. All the teachings, all the flesh in the Bible is not related to age or health. No. Sin is not related to age or health. Of course, little children, before the age of accountability, or better age, say, before the age of discernment, what is right and wrong. Well, of course, it is not that they cannot commit sin, it is only that it is not reckoned as sin. When a child, 1-year-old child comes and beat the mother or the father, when bite the mother, what is a holy act? Heaven will immediately record, oh, that child has done a very holy act. No, that's not a holy act, that's a sinful act. But why God ignores this time of our ignorances? The child is not accountable, therefore God says, overlook. Action is bad, but overlooked. That's all. So children also commit sin. But are they punished for the sin? That's a different matter. Whether the activities are sinful or not, yes, it is. If it does not harmonize with the standard of the Word of God, with the character, quality, then it is a sinful act. It's besides the point who has done it. After all sinners are not punished the same way. Yes, all sinners are not. Even by our human courts it is not. No. The first time in offense is taken differently than a habitual offense. A minor's, the same heinous sin committed by a minor, and just the birthday just passed. Now what is the minority? 16 years old? Yeah, I think for juvenile court is 16 years old. Anything, your 16th birthday is just 1 week away and you have done it. Oh well, it's viewed differently. If it was done after 1 week, you would have been put in another jail. Yes. So that is the reckoning. Reckoning. How many beats you have to give him? In what jail he has to be put? It does not make the sinful act a righteous act. So age, and such things have nothing to do with that. So when we say sin is sensuousness, it does not hold much water. It does not hold much water. So all kinds of theories come, all kinds of theories come. Very interesting. People sit down and think and think and think, Another theory which holds more water than the other theories we said is sin is selfishness. Sin is selfishness. This theory says that all sin is related to some form of selfishness. But the problem is this theory is more philosophical than theological. That's the problem. It holds much water, but philosophically the water is only in the philosophical bucket, not in the theological bucket. Yes. Selfishness and self-love are not the same. Self-love is essential for survival. If you don't love yourself, will you eat? Will you bathe? Will you clothe? Will you sleep? Will you work? No. So self-love is good. The Lord said, love your neighbor as yourself. If you don't love, you won't love your neighbor. So that's not bad. But selfishness is different. What is selfishness? Selfishness is the undue preference of our own happiness. The undue preference of our own happiness or welfare to the happiness and welfare of others. That's what it is. When it is a due preference, it is not sin. It is your self-love. Undue preference. Two children are crying. Same age, born the same day. Immediately one woman comes and picks up a child and go to the room and feed the baby. The other child is still crying. Is that selfishness? That's not selfishness. That's part of your motherly obligation, right? You cannot feed all the babies that are crying. That's not practically possible. If the other child didn't have a mother, an orphan child or something, it's a different story. Maybe you need to pick up both and, feed both. Yeah, you can do that. The children may not be full, but you can feed both babies. But when the other mother is there cutting the vegetables or mother is watching the TV, the child is crying, you don't need to pick up that baby and feed it. Because God has blessed that child with a mother, but not with a good mother sometimes. That's a different matter. So, what is selfishness? Selfishness is not simply a preference, but it is an undue preference for one's own happiness or welfare. To some, such a preferential desire consists in the purpose, but according to others, maybe it is a feeling. Those who hold the view of purpose see all sin in the purpose of seeking self-satisfaction. But those who take it as a feeling see all sin related to some selfish feelings. Whether it is purpose or feeling, for me it does not make much difference. The purpose, whether the selfish act is done because of my selfish purpose, or it is act because of my selfish feeling. Whether the activity is done out of feeling or out of purpose. Means purpose is well calculated, thought through. Feelings is more spontaneous. The feelings, you don't have feelings well calculated and tomorrow 5 o'clock I'm going to have a good feeling. You don't say that. But you can say that tomorrow 5 o'clock I'm going to bathe my baby. You can do that. Feelings are spontaneous. They are not necessarily, calculative. So there is a difference. So this theory is founded on certain principles. Number one, happiness is the highest good. Whatever hinders happiness is evil. Happiness is the highest good. Whatever hinders happiness is evil. Is happiness the highest good? To many people, happiness is the highest good. Yes. Lot of people act on it. So whatever hinders happiness is evil. So they say evil is what hinders happiness. Since happiness is the highest good, whatever promotes happiness is the highest virtue. If happiness is the highest good, then whatever promotes happiness is the greatest virtue. Since God is infinite, God is infinitely happy, and His desires must be to increase our happiness. Yeah. God is infinite, so God is the one who is infinitely happy. So God must be sitting there at the morning of eternity past to the evening of eternity future and have a big smile on His face because He is happy. No. The universe being the work of God, the universe is designed to provide happiness. Look at that. This universe is designed to provide happiness. You look at the mountain, how beautiful. Look at the flowers, how pretty they are. Look at the animals, how fun they are. Look at the aquarium, the fish, how beautiful they are. Look at the apple tree, how beneficial they are. So wonderful. Wonderful. God created everything. The streams, the ocean, the mountains, and the hillocks and everything. The little creatures, the birds and the reptiles and the animals, the wild animals, the domesticated animals, everything for man's pleasure. Everything for man's pleasure. Of course, sometimes they take man also for their pleasure. That's when we have a little bit problem, Yes. The universe being the work of God, the universe is designed to provide happiness. Actually, we need to enjoy the world more. I think sometimes I feel Christians are miserable people who never goes out of their homes to climb a mountain or to go to the beach to enjoy an evening, sunset sight, or to a garden to watch good flowers and smell them, or to a zoo to see the animals. Christians sometimes they say they are all waste. They are all waste. They are not waste. God created them all for us. For who else? Of course, some of them got created only for God. Because you see those some little nice, beautiful fish in the ocean among the what you call there the coral, among the coral. No man can see them in the Pacific Ocean somewhere, but I think the Father, Son and Holy Spirit will say, hey, look at it, we made it wonderful, isn't it nice? Look at that, how it moves. And the God is a great appreciator of beauty. God is very aesthetic, very aesthetic, not ascetic, very aesthetic. He enjoys it, he looks at them. Look at the beautiful trees and some of the cedars of Lebanon, how tall they grow. And even some of the orchids right in the forest, these things. People have brought them from the forest to the land. Otherwise the orchids all live there. How beautiful they are. Some of those orchid flowers are how? No. God made them for whom? Yeah, for him to enjoy, for us also, because the earth is given to man. We have to enjoy. We need to enjoy. Really, we need to enjoy. We need to go around and, yes, going that will not make selfishness. No. Going away sometimes with your camera, click some pictures and all that, and, yes, our time, yes, we will. So, go away. Church goes for a picnic. People say that, oh, it's God's money. You should not. Well, every money you have is God's money, right? You have any money that is not God's, yeah, black money. Eh? But Christians not supposed to have black money, right? Oh yeah, there's plenty of black money in this world, So as sin exists in the world, sin must be necessary to provide happiness to man. That's what the people say. The more happiness sin provides, less sinful sin becomes. The more happiness sin provides, less sinful sin becomes. I once talked to my doctor, when we were in States. I was the last patient, so I had plenty of time, and doctor was a very talkative person. We talked, and so I thought I would witness to him, and I said, doctor, have you ever really thought seriously about salvation and all? Well, he said, Mr. Thomas, you know what? I enjoy sin. That's my problem. So don't tell me sin is bad. Sin is very funny. And he said, if I get opportunity, I'll commit adultery with all nurses and everybody who works here. If they agree, we enjoy it. If you say that's bad, I should say, no, that's good. So that's it. There is that. If sin provides you, pleasure, the more pleasure the sin gives, the less sinful it becomes. Yeah. What a terrible theory and tragedy. This worldly people, in the world they do that. No, sin remains sinful. The more pleasure it gives, the more sinful it becomes. Because sin is supposed to give you pain in your conscience. But if it starts giving you pleasure in your conscience, that means you have gone beyond even the boundary God has set for a sinner to sin. When a man takes pleasure, that's where the book of Romans chapter 1 closes. They not only do these things, but they take great pride in those who do these things. See that? The sin has come to a place where you cross the boundary. Yes, that's very, very terrible. Now this world is like that. 4 or 5 young people get together, what are they gabbing about? Oh, I have done this, I have done that, I have done this. Then the other one is saying that I have done this. Then the other one is saying, I have done even more. So they are priding each other in saying that what all wickedness they have done. And so the one who has done the most wicked, he is appreciated the most. He is appreciated the most. Isn't that? Yes. This is the way things are. This is the way things are. Well, we'll take a break there. Yes.